Welcome to At the Root with Greg Kiper. Greg is a psychotherapist and holistic life coach. His practice is Kiper Counseling. Through his professional practice and personal experiences, Greg knows that without connection with ourselves, connection with others is near impossible because emotional connection is at the root of healthy living. A reminder, if you have a question or a comment, you can call into the show at 425-373-5527 or go to kipercounseling.com. There you can connect with Greg's YouTube channel, Connection Through Awareness with Greg Kiper. You can also email Greg at connectionthroughawareness@gmail.com. Hello to Greg.
Hello, Stacy. How are you today?
I am doing well.
Me too.
I'm doing very well. I took a lot away from last week talking about repairing the disconnect.
Yeah.
It was helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to learn this week.
You know, I am shifting gears a little bit. I want to revisit what I've been referring to as illusions. We've been talking about illusions, right? And these partners triggering each other's illusions and going into that critical loop. And what are these illusions, right? We talked about this quite a while back, but I want to go into it a little bit more because it's important that each partner understand their own illusion as well as their partner's illusions so that they can interact without the triggers, without the reactions to the illusions. And I think sometimes when we talk about these illusions, we kind of go right by, the illusions, yes, the illusions. But let's get into it a little bit.
Well, it feels like the illusions are at the core of everything.
It seems like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. In fact, I will say it is.
Dare you say it. Well, and we expect our partners to allow us grace as we get triggered, and we need to remember to allow them the same grace.
That's right. And sometimes it's very hard if we don't know that they're being triggered too.
It's not about them, Greg. It's about me.
Yeah. You're triggering me.
Exactly.
Right. No, I am being triggered. There's a big difference.
All right.
So
teach me.
These illusions, as I have described them, are in the context of our personal lives and are basically automatic behaviors we have crafted to help us with the uncomfortable feelings of difficult situations. So a difficult situation happens. We want to figure out some way to protect ourselves or defend ourselves or not get too involved in the difficult sensitivities of that situation, right? We want to back off. It's automatic that way. For most of us, I believe these protective behaviors developed at a young age. Although age is not a determining factor, it could happen anytime. But I think they start at that young age. Traumatic, mental, physical, emotional experiences can happen at any age, though, right?
Sure.
It doesn't matter what age is not the determining factor. But it happens a lot with children, right? Because we're so vulnerable when we're little kids.
Right.
We're just total vulnerable.
Well, we're sponges, and we sense stress, and so we are like, let's be quiet, or let's walk around on eggshells.
Right. We're particularly vulnerable to relational trauma. And I describe this as trauma that's happening between, for us at that age, our caregivers and us generally, right? And I describe this as happening after we have begun to develop explicit memory. So this is memory where we can put ourselves in a place or time. We can see ourselves in that room at that time or whatever. That's an explicit memory. And this typically begins or happens around 18 to 24 months. Prior to that, I describe the trauma we may experience as developmental trauma.
Okay.
We have an implicit memory associated with just the feelings, right? But our brains aren't there yet, developed enough to establish an explicit recollection of the events. Now, this kind of trauma really starts in the womb early in our development. They're finding more and more about that out as research develops in that area. So as young children, we are totally vulnerable, right? Our safety, be it physical or emotional, is in the hands of our caregivers, whoever that is. We are unable to defend or protect ourselves. We just aren't. If, as so often happens, our caregivers exhibit an inability to protect or defend us, and in fact, maybe even threaten the sensitivities of our emotions, and those emotions are so imminent at that age. So what do we do? There's this little kid. Here, in this instance, we have the very persons that are responsible for our safety, and they are posing a threat to us by not honoring our sensitivities. That's the difficult place there. We can only react to the threat, and that means fight, flight, freeze, the basic trauma reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pause here and I'll ask everybody out there, look back, what was your perceived or real emotional threat, I'll call it, at that young age? And what did you do? How did you react to it? What was your coping mechanism, if you will? You're going to, okay. I see a hand up.
I'm the only one here.
Oh, okay.
And, I don't think Eric is going to get into it, but,
No. Well.
I remember as a little kid that as the baby of the family, and I know everyone listening is shocked, the talkative one, I was quieted, shushed, pushed to the side. Children are seen and not heard. Just there wasn't time, or we're doing something, or not now, or whatever it is. Like that song, I think it's the Cat Stevens song, like Father and Son, or I always get it confused. Right. Anyway, it's the other one, isn't it? I don't know, whatever.
No, you're doing it.
So anyway, I feel like I was always pushed aside and quieted. And so then I learned then to be quiet until, frankly, I just couldn't shut up anymore.
Right.
And that didn't happen until much later that I was able to start expressing myself.
Interesting. So, that's the freeze response, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Just the other day, I had a woman talking about this in my office, and she said, what I would do in those instances as a little kid, I would disappear.
Oh, 100%.
And she says, I would become invisible. And then she paused for a minute and she said, and you know what? I'm still invisible today. Wow. Yeah. Powerful stuff.
Hey, girlfriend, listen to the show every week. And like me, you will no longer be invisible.
That's good. So I'm challenging everybody that's listening and beyond, whatever, that looks at these podcasts in the future, to just think about that question, for a period of time. It's not, don't analyze it. Just look at it with curiosity. What was my threat? What was it? Was it anger in the household? Was it, not being listened to? Was it? Yeah.
Well, and sometimes there's environments that we're in where there's conflict between mom and dad, or conflict with an older sibling, or there's things that are going on there. And sometimes, like in the case of my parents, they didn't mean any harm. They didn't know the damage that was being done. So sometimes we are not comfortable saying that there's trauma because it doesn't seem to live up to the definition of trauma, right? We associate it with something monumental.
Right.
And yet, by the way, this is your perceived trauma as a small child.
Well, yeah, and we're so vulnerable. Anything can threaten that sense of stability that we're trying to maintain or find out about even at that point. Our emotions are all over the place when you're that little kid.
Sure.
And it doesn't take much to hurt or damage. you were talking about parents. My parents argued angrily. My dad would react, and he berated my mom, and she would cry and plead and lash back at him, and it was just a fight, not a physical fight, but a fight. And I would hear this. I hid in the closet with a box of Cheerios.
I brought goldfish.
That's what I did. My reaction was hide. Take flight and get away as far as I could. Well, when you're 4 or 5, the closet is about the extent of your flight range, right? I mean,
sure.
Yeah. You can't run away. And there's no way to trade your parents in for a new set. You're pretty much stuck with them and your reactions to protect yourself. So, yeah, I ate a lot of Cheerios in that closet.
Do you still eat Cheerios?
I can't stand them now.
Tracks.
There is no way.
Oh, okay.
So what does this have to do with the illusions, we've been talking about? These defensive reactions we develop into patterns of behavior. They become habit. We just do it. We are particularly susceptible to this at that early age, right? This is the beginning of the autopilot I talk so much about. This habit starts to form. It's unconscious. We just do it. So this unconscious programming is a collection of the defensive reactions we have developed to counter threats to our sensitivities over time, right? So we just keep collecting these little defense things that we do and to protect ourselves, and we plug it into the autopilot so we don't have to consciously think about it, and that is the illusion. Mm-hmm. As our sphere of influence expands, right? First of all, it's just our parents, and then we go to preschool and kindergarten, and as this influence expands, so can the threats to our sensitivities, right? More people to do those things accidentally or whatever. And what was once a coping skill developed for a singular traumatic event, right, or a threat, this conversion into behaviors designed to defend us from threats from all kinds of situations and people, real or imagined. So in my case, I became conflict avoidant. And it all started in that closet, I think. I can still find myself looking for a closet today. If I'm not aware, I gotta watch that. No Cheerios though. The ancillary problems of our automatic defense reactions can be immense. I mean, this one reaction can spread out in all kinds of areas in our life and just magnify these reactions and the problems. For instance, if we're conflict avoidant, we want to take care of everyone, and everything. We want to make sure everybody's happy, right? I mean, that's just what avoidance is. So we take care of everybody and everything except ourselves. That way there's no conflict. No conflict. Everything's good. Everything's good. Take care of everybody. So this leads others around us to think that, boy, they are so together. And that's just what we want, right? For everybody to think we are just so together. We can find perfectionism is very helpful in this task, remember? Perfectionism is defined as us being perfect in the eyes of others, not being perfect in our own eyes. And then, when we can't pull all of this off, here comes the shame and the lack of the self-worth. So all of this stuff can play a really detrimental part in our existence, and it all kind of sprung from that avoidant place that we developed. If our patterned behavior is based on the flight reaction, which is what we're talking about, then we are undeniably avoidant and dismissive. So what started as a flight from angry situations with our caregivers has now morphed into this flight from any situations requiring emotional expression. My dad existed in some kind of time warp where he thought I should have the ability to reason and think critically like an adult at the approximate age of 6. Yeah. So there was a lot of suck it up, stop crying, get it right input for me. And that fed right into my avoidant responsiveness, right? When we are avoidant and dismissive of our own emotions, we are avoidant and dismissive of the emotions of others. And if those others are close to us, we got a big, big problem. Oof. I see it every day. Illusions, by definition, are not real, right? They are not true. This makes them false. I define the collective automatic behaviors, these reactions, that we have developed as part of our personality to be illusions because they are not real. They are not true. We incorporate these illusions into our autopilot to automatically shield us from threats to our sensitivities that probably don't even exist anymore and haven't for quite, for some time. And yet they're still written in the code of our automatic behavior, right?
Mm-hmm. I think of this as like when you have, you can use tape to pick up like dog or cat hair on your couch, right? And you use it and it picks up all of that, but then it also picks up other stuff as well.
Right.
And so suddenly you start using it for everything. And that's what this feels like, is that
it is.
We create something that it's like, well, it's for this purpose. And then you just kind of get into this habit of like, well, actually it works for this and this too. So I'm just going to use the same tool for different jobs.
Yeah. The analogy queen strikes again.
Well,
that was good.
Right? I mean, tape works for crumbs and cat hair and, yeah.
So we live under the illusion, this illusion that we've developed is that we're okay. Things aren't too bad. We are unconscious of our unconscious programming that is running the show. The illusions allow us to keep whatever it is we are protecting out of our conscious realm, not in here. When the whole premise we are operating under is false, the truth is sooner or later going to slap us, wake us up, and get our attention. It's bound to happen. Something happens and your illusion is threatened. Your wife wants a divorce. Your boss says he doesn't think you're a team player and you're being replaced. You overdose. Tragedy points to the falseness of our illusion. And we take an unexpected hit. Unexpected because we've been on autopilot, just cruising along. Our illusions can consist of many factors, right? Being distant, overprotective, selfish, manipulative, being passive-aggressive, over-emotional, not emotional, victimization, being the victim, addiction, behavioral disorders. All of these factors can be in this illusion that we're operating under. I believe that over time we add more and more of these behavioral reactions to our illusions repertoire in order to keep propping it up. This illusion has taken some hits from the truth from time to time, but we've managed to keep it functioning by adding new behaviors till we can't anymore. Addicts may find the proverbial bottom where they are faced with the ruination of their lives. When do we find the bottom of our illusions and what they are doing to us? We talked, we've been talking a lot about the flight response to trauma that we've experienced relationally. There is, of course, the fight response, right? We haven't talked about that, but that's typically exhibited by anger, we can bring this anger forward in our lives, and it becomes part of our illusion. Anger can be an avoidant response too, right? It's just shielding us from feeling the real emotional content of what is happening. And we get angry.
We talked about that with Stephen and Charlotte.
We did. Steve is kind of that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we talked about the freeze response, and you had the great, you shared your story there about disappearing and becoming invisible. Yeah. I'm still invisible today.
That makes me
Those
sad.
just few words just really hit me that day. But she became aware. That's the first step.
Absolutely the first step.
Yeah. So illusions. And then recognizing what our own illusions are, right? So that we can bring them into awareness and figure out what to do with them, right? And that's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as going, oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, no, it's not at all. And then when you're in a relationship and you both got your own illusions going, I mean, that's where relationship issues happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're unaware of our own illusions, and then we blame the other person for causing us harm with their illusion, but we've got our own illusions, and yeah.
What's interesting is someone once shared with me that when you're reacting to something, the conversation was actually around intuition and a gut feeling, right?
Uh-huh.
So that your intuition is this automatic response. And so you'll get kind of this vibe about something.
Right.
However, it's always associated with something good. I mean, it tells you something positive, right? Even if it's like run,
right?
Like it's a directive and it's a positive thing. And that these illusions, when we start hearing negative things, that it's much more of a conversation. It's negative. And so when these automatic feelings that are negative pop in, it's like I can tell the difference between what, is really going on and what's maybe an intuitive idea about something or what may be true, and what is that narrative, that illusion where, I'm like, oh, there it goes. Yeah. Here's this thing that's triggered. And I absolutely can tell when I am being shut down and I go into disappear. My body changes.
Physically,
I become like, and I just shut down.
Yeah, and that's the first, we're going to go segue more into that in upcoming sessions, but that's the first place we want to be able to become aware of. It happens in our physical body. Oop, what is that? Wait a second, stop. Before it takes over, and 3 days later, we've made 17 people mad, and we're at home, and can't go to work, and whatever.
Well, and you talk about the location that you associate, right? A closet, and that you tend to do that. Interestingly, I also used to hide in my closet. It's where there was the best snacks, it was, like it was comfy, whatever. And also, I sort of wonder if I was somebody that hung out in corners a lot because I had like sort of walls backing me up, because to this day I sit in the corner of couches or wherever it is.
Oh yeah, right.
As like I'm being backed up. I'm supported somehow.
Right.
And I can also like see what's going on around me to protect myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the closet is kind of reverting back to the womb, right? Safe there, tight, close.
Right.
Warm.
Totally.
Right. And your little corner is too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just interesting to start to, you've been having us be aware of things. And when you start to just pay attention to these responses that you have, that feels like you've been emotionally slapped, where you just have this like, what just happened?
Right.
And when you have that feeling, to then be aware.
Right. And that's where we're going to go with this a little bit more. We've been talking so much about awareness, but where I want to go with this now is we've got these illusions, and what were the original, what started that? What was way back there? What was the wound that caused the perceived or real threat? What was the wound, right? And we're going to get into that. We're out of time now, but that's where we're headed next is move into the wound. And remember, we talked about the bandages
Yes.
and all of that. And that's the important part of where I went ahead with this. So there we go.
Love it. Okay. I look forward to that.
Weirdly.
Well, it's time to address the illusions
It
and
is.
undress the bandages.
Yep.
Okay. So, Greg, your advice?
Everyone, stay aware out there. See you next week.